I'm going to, I think I made James, I think I made you a co-host so that you can unmute yourself. So you should be able to press unmute. There we go.
There it is.
Very good. And so James and Miracle, it's wonderful to see you both again. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I saw the photo that was up there was definitely pre-COVID haircuts.
Yeah, well, you know, that's where you get the advantage of. We'll just all pretend that that's the way things still are. It's all good. So, but thank you for being with us. I know you've been on before about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Wholly different time then, right? So thank you all for coming back and participating. I know you got a lot to do, and it's a really interesting time, but I think it's really important, especially now, to talk about small businesses in Charlotte, people who are creating jobs in Charlotte, whose livelihood is based here in Charlotte. And so kind of on behalf of the group, I might just ask the open-ended question of, you know, how are you guys doing? Everyone's stress level is high. I just got to imagine your stress level is maybe through the roof. How are you guys doing?
Depends on the day, right? Because things change so quickly sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate that, you know, we were able to apply for loans and grants and get some operating expenses like in the accounts. So that made it easier to sleep at night, especially in the beginning, like just kind of wondering, you know.
Yeah, first couple of weeks were pretty terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like, oh shit, there was no rule book for that. So definitely getting that was pretty beneficial.
Yeah. How did, for you, was there's a change, kind of a fast within 24 hours, you realized something happened, or was it more of a slow build? Like, when did you guys decide, and how did you make the decision on when to shut down the coffee shops?
So we closed March 18th. I think we made the decision on like the 15th. We closed J Street. So we actually kind of closed before everything was mandated. I have two brothers and a sister who live in Santa Monica, and kind of hearing what was happening out on the West Coast and just all the uncertainties and seeing it, you know, businesses in food and beverage in particular trying to modify the way we serve and stuff, but having no clue what this was or what the impact would be. We felt that the smart and you know, the responsible move was just to stop business, and then from there see what we could do. I mean, it was a nauseating decision to make. We've essentially, from one day to the next, we furloughed our entire staff, including ourselves. So yeah. We were closed for about 3 months, I think, right? 2.5? About 2.5 months.
Yeah, we've almost forgotten already what the early days of March were like, right? I mean, it feels like a lifetime ago when the whole world and all the information we knew were changing on a daily basis. And then after a while, it moved to changing on a weekly basis. And I think we're still in the changing on a weekly basis mode, where the information from last week is so stale it's useless, right? In terms of regulations or where the health is going. Let's take a step back, because I kind of jumped right in there a little bit. I think a lot of people are familiar with Not Just Coffee, but maybe everyone's not. Tell them about Not Just Coffee. How long y'all been around? Which locations do you have, and where? Let's just start with some basics for people.
Sure. So we started in 2011. We moved to Charlotte in 2009, and we formed the company, I guess, in 2010. And it took us about a year and a half to get our first location open. We moved. We live in Optimus Park, and that's where we've been the whole time we've been in Charlotte. And our first location was at Area 15 on 15th Street in Davidson. So we bootstrapped, and with the goodwill of a lot of friends and people that we met when we first moved to Charlotte, kind of got a very small iteration of what Not Just Coffee is open. We had about 150 square feet. And then in end of 2011, we moved into 7th Street Public Market in Uptown. And from there grew, we have 6 locations, had 6 locations, we have 6 inactive locations.
4 inactive.
4 inactive.
2 active currently.
And then a 7th location that is a private location for Bank of America, which is also closed. But so we've been going at it for about 10 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost 9. Yeah.
So let's start. Forget COVID. It is impossible to ask. I'm going to ask you, forget COVID for a second. In that 10-year journey, where are you now that's different than where you expected to be? I mean, what's really shocked you about where you are? Did you ever expect to have 6 locations and dozens of employees? Was that always the vision, or did it just, because you're doing something really cool of high quality, to just kind of continue to take off?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, when we first started it, Miracle was working as an occupational therapist to pay the bills, and I was behind the bar making coffee, and I never, in a million years, I never really thought of 2 locations, honestly, because I mean, it was our first stab at entrepreneurship, and I mean, we'd always worked like in nonprofits and stuff in our past, so we had like some entrepreneurial experience, but not for like starting a business. And people would come in all the time and ask, you know, are you going to open a 2nd location? And I just was like, you guys are crazy. Like, it's enough just standing, you know, trying to keep this going in 1 location. So no, we never anticipated that. And then when it started taking off and we saw the response and how positive Charlotte responded to it, it just, you know, a few opportunities came along that seemed really great. And then from there on, it kind of snowballed, you know, and it was exciting. And you know, we still are extremely grateful, but certainly leading up to COVID, we've often just kind of looked at each other and been like, we can't believe, you know, that this has taken off and kind of done what it does. And we've got like, you know, up until what, like 45 staff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've been able to create spaces in our company that have been careers, where coffee is not a typical thing that people can build a career out of. It's a small margin. It's a tough business, but we've been fortunate to be able to retain really incredible staff, and yeah.
That's great. So Miracle, when did you start getting more involved in the business? How did that unfold over time?
About the time we opened Packard, and I guess, you know, at first there just really wasn't a need. James was there every day. There was very little like back ends, like bookkeeping or employee management or payroll, you know, like it was all pretty like small. But when we opened Atherton, I started doing a little and kind of, you know, working with the accountant to like actually keep books because it started making money. And
It was a shock.
And then by the time we opened Packard, we kind of decided, well, hey, this could be something full-time that we both do. And since like treating our employees well has always been important to us. Of course, you know, we're in customer service, so it goes without saying that we want our customers to be happy, but also keeping, you know, staff happy is a full-time job.
Yeah, I manage teams of people, and 45 people are also 45 sets of issues, right? God bless them, but yes, the people have issues. That's part of the gig. So how do you talked about your employees, and I know you all are very purposeful about your thinking towards employees. How do you figure out how to make employees, you know, really committed to the cause and treat them right and have a win-win, to use a coined phrase, right? Or more of a positive relationship. How do you both go about that as owners of a business?
I mean, I think a big part of what we have done, you know, whether it's been intuitive or intentional, is just creating a work environment that we feel very proud of and feel like the tool I use is always going back into situations like, if I was working for this company, how would I feel? Because, you know, we've all worked for other people before, and I've worked for good bosses and really terrible bosses. And, you know, ultimately it's kind of like on a day by day, like, is this a work environment that I would thrive in, that I would be proud of, that I would want to be associated with? And I think, you know, as our team has grown, they've helped build that culture as well. So it's certainly like a team effort.
Yeah, and I always have to throw in that we both come from big families, so I think it came kind of naturally for us. I'm one of 8, he's one of 10. We're both second oldest, which we all know the oldest child doesn't do anything, so everything falls on the second oldest. So like, but you know, you don't always like everything your siblings are doing, but you always love them, right? So I kind of always go back to that, like, you know, too, like if this was my brother or sister and they were, you know, having this problem or treating my other sibling this way or whatever, and, you know, how would I deal with it if it was family?
Yeah. I cannot begin to imagine what your family reunions must look like, right? Are you,
Christmas.
Yeah, they're a shit show.
Over at Christmas.
do you get matching T-shirts? Are you one of those families?
No, although last year my brother, who's sort of maybe the clown of the family, he bought those like zip up animal costumes.
One for everybody.
One for everyone.
Christmas gifts, and made us all get in them.
Well, we have a public house called Photos with Keith Ludeman, and I think you might need to send in a couple of those photos for next week. So we have to call.
I'll see if I can track any down.
Yeah, right. Miracle, could you make sure we get the photos?
I'll talk to Destiny. I think she's got some somewhere.
Well, that's great. You guys have, and I mean this when I say this, I think you've created one of the beloved brands in Charlotte. There's probably a dozen, maybe 2 dozen of them that people in Charlotte feel like they own, right? They feel like it's part of them. How did you go about doing that? I mean, to your point of whether it's intentional kind of or just ingrained in it, how did that happen?
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, that means a lot for sure.
I guess it's both, it comes natural enough, right? And then it's also work. So I think that there's 2 sides to that coin, but you always have to be intentional to actually do anything a certain way.
Yeah,
So
worthwhile. How has it been for you all as you, especially maybe James, maybe more for you, but I'm not sure, but started with this, real passion for coffee. And then all of a sudden you're managing, 6 locations of 45 people. I'm betting you don't spend a lot of time making coffee anymore, right? And
right.
You're an owner and runner of business, not a coffee aficionado. Although I know you're still both, but how has that transition been? And Miracle, that may be true for you too, but how has it been being a business owner versus being someone following a passion in a way?
I mean, it was a pretty radical adjustment for sure. I mean, it was a big change because when we started, I would say for the first 2 years, I was behind bar every day, and that's what I did. That was what I was honing that skill set, and I was working with our small staff, but ultimately I was in more of a peer role kind of, and also I was very focused on falling in love with the art of coffee, and hospitality and customer service is something that I love, and something that I thrive in. So being in that role, I don't want to say it was easy because physically it was demanding, but I did very well in that role. Shifting into more of an owner's role was challenging and continues to be challenging. I certainly don't miss having to open the shop and then close it 14 hours later every day.
Make the donuts.
by a long shot, but it's definitely been, I've had to learn a lot, and Miracle, starting to be full-time with the company was really incredible because she has a totally different skill set than I do and helped in a lot of ways that we really needed it.
So let's start with that, because I think you all know that I'm in business with my wife on all the businesses that we have started, and we have very complementary skill sets. But saying we have very complementary skill sets also means we're very different people and we drive each other crazy, because
yes, it does
there's that too.
How has that been for both of you? I mean, how's that journey been, being business partners and spouses?
It depends on the day, Somebody asked once, well, what's the best and worst thing about working with your husband? And I was like, they're the same. You get to see so much of them. So it depends on the day. But yeah, you sometimes I think we create some intentional separation, just to give that space. And then other times it's a lot of fun to just like trip around all day together if we have certain meetings set up that we both need to be at, and go to lunch in between. And
yeah. And I think for me, when we first started, or with the first 2 locations, really, I guess with 7th and Atherton, I'm very particular about how I like to have things done, and some people have called me anal retentive, which I'm
some people
once or twice. So, for me, like adjusting to growth was challenging in regards to that, both for, with Miracle, but also with our staff and everything sometimes, because it was like, I saw things like through a very narrow lens in a way. And then I realized at some point that was actually hindering our company, hindering myself. It was holding us back. And like, you know, I'm a work in progress for sure. I don't know if I'll ever be super easy to get along with, but you know.
He has a hard time delegating and letting go of that. So he'll delegate, but then he'll be checking on and making sure it's happening exactly how he would do it.
Oh, so he's that kind of delegator. Oh.
I've gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
For sure. So Miracle handles certain things and I handle, you know, other things. And I think we just kind of respect that they're going to, you know, take care of it the way that, you know, we each other, the way we know best. And then obviously we talk about work all the time too. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge for me is there's no separation sometimes. Well, first thing in the morning, we both wake up, work is what we start talking about and right before bed. So we have to be very deliberate to avoid that. Otherwise it just comes naturally to do that.
Yeah. So I gotta imagine at your house, you have like this Mac Daddy coffee setup, like in coffee. Is that true? Do you have like the king setup in your house?
We do have a lot of different ways to brew coffee. I actually brew our coffee every morning, or maybe
That was my next question, which is
I bring some coffee every morning. But you know, I mean, we have a Chemex, we have
Mocha
we have a
Master.
Mocha Master, and that's usually what we use. But
Yeah, we've got a great brewing setup. We actually don't have an espresso machine at home. And that was one of the things we've talked about it over the years, but I've just always came back to like, especially when I was working in it every day, I was like, I'm not going to prepare myself or us espresso at home because I do it every single day for 12
and
hours
we're
a day.
going to be at a shop.
And we're
every
always gonna be
day,
at a shop.
and, you know.
So now that you haven't been to the shops, so the shops are now open. I was wondering if you're getting the jitters from not having espresso every day.
Actually, we really missed it. When we opened the shop back up, all of our
Yeah.
team were so excited to be able to get that.
Yeah, that first week was really good.
But then let's talk a little bit about that on where you are, because you mentioned 6 locations. I think I heard you say 4 have, at least in some way, shape, or form, opened back up. Because I also want people who are here listening to this and who will watch it later understand kind of where you are and how we can help you. What's open? What can we do? So let's start with the basic. What's open? What's not? And how have you managed that process?
So we actually have 4 still closed and 2 open, but the ones that are open are the Park Road and South Boulevard, and we're doing to go out of them right now. So there's no in dining open till 5 at both of them.
Yeah, 7 to 5. We've expanded our hours, and Juan I think mentioned, or I saw the thing about Cluesive, and so we've used Cluesive very nominally over the years. It just has never been a big part of our business, but now we're exclusively using Cluesive for all of our orders, which has been a learning curve for our customers, but it's been pretty incredible. And Tim is awesome. He's so responsive. So from like a functionality point of view, it's been incredible for operations. So you order ahead. We don't do any cash or card on site. We're probably going to modify that at some point, but Cluesive's been working great. Staff is happy with it. Contactless.
We will be opening 7th, a soft opening tomorrow, and then the whole market opening on July 2nd, reopening. So that's on the 7th Street Public Market in Uptown. And then the following week, we have plans to open J Street or work towards
Next month,
getting open. Yeah, middle of July.
Yeah, and I would imagine even as you are slowly able to take steps to open the doors, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's hunky-dory, right? I mean, in terms of how volume is going to hit. I bet. What are you thinking in terms of, you know, volume being back to healthy levels? Is that months away, quarters away, years away? How are you all thinking about it?
Hopefully not years away.
Sorry, I don't mean to be pressing. Sorry.
No, of course that thought goes through your mind. And I'm trying to pull different energy down from the universe on that. Yeah, I mean, Dilworth was, because it's a neighborhood spot, was pretty good from the get-go, and we had those half-gallon jugs that we were selling, and so there it's been all right. Atherton a little slower, but it's getting there.
Yeah, Atherton and Dilworth have been picking up quite well. I'm honestly not very optimistic about 7th Street yet. I mean, we're kind of going in with the market and flow with them, and we'll have very limited hours, but so far, you know, we live right near Uptown. We're in Optimist Park. We're in Uptown a lot, and I just haven't seen the traffic yet, you know.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about this just because you're also one of our tenants in Packard Place, right? So we've been having conversations as tenant landlord, which has been interesting. And I'm sitting in Uptown Charlotte right now, and then there clearly is not the traffic yet coming through Uptown Charlotte, but I know we're anxious as Packard picks up volume, Uptown picks up volume to have you guys open here again, because you're part of the family, part of the culture that makes Packard Place what it is. So
Yeah, same. We're eager to, for sure. You know, and I think part of the anxiety is, you know, as owners, is just the uncertainty. You know, before we assumed, you know, we could make fairly accurate assumptions opening a location. You know, whether they met those assumptions exactly, but now it's just such a crapshoot.
Yeah, I think
You know,
it does
could be like, are 5 people going to come through? Or 50? You know.
yeah, and like we said, every you know, early on was every day information is changing. Now every week is changing.
Yep.
As you mentioned a couple times in this call, the governor just issued the mask order.
Mhm.
So we'll see whether that makes people feel safer coming out, whether it slows down the virus, whether people are like, well, how do I drink my coffee with a mask?
Right. Sure.
Although I will tell you,
That's the little straw holes.
I probably shouldn't say this, but one of my friends works out in public safety, and they say part of the way people are getting around masks orders in certain places are they're like, well, I'm drinking my coffee, so I'm sipping my coffee, right? So they buy a coffee and just with a coffee.
Have more coffee at least.
I'm like, geez, people, really? I'm like, no, really. Let's before we go off, we were talking about Tim and Cluesive, so I want to just talk about that for a second, because I know tomorrow morning Juan talked about that event with Pay CLT that Tim is on and Cluesive going to be on. And I think that's a really interesting example of local, you know, worlds colliding, right? The local FinTech innovation kind of, you know, Tim's trying to build a high growth company that can scale nationally, and there you all are locally doing one of the really valuable things for him, right? Being a first customer, going through some of the growing pains. I'm sure it's been painful being one of the first kind of major clients, and then him being there for you when you had to pivot and say, hey, Tim, how can we make all this happen so we can get revenue in the door? Talk a little bit about what that relationship has been like, working with a fellow local entrepreneur, someone in the tech space, the give back and forth you've both done, why you choose to support each other. Just talk about that a little bit. I think people will be interested to hear more.
Sure. When Tim first came to us with Cluesive, I mean, it definitely seemed like an interesting, an interesting platform. And we've historically been pretty, not opposed, but we really haven't done any order ahead options. I mean, we feel like most of our drinks don't hold up well. And if someone orders and they show up 10 minutes later, it's not the same thing. And so then you have quality issues. So we had a very limited menu through Cluesive, and it was mostly just iced beverages. And even that pretty limited. It was all quality control thing. But then when, Tim's always been great to work with, super responsive, smart guy, really great staff love him. And then when, the COVID stuff happened, the COVID stuff, and when we were reopening, it just seemed kind of like a natural option. So I got on the phone with Tim and kind of talked through some like logistics and some of the, the user interface of Cluesive. And he's just been so responsive to helping us fix issues and take note. And that's one of the benefits of working with a smaller, startup, because we've worked with Square. You can give suggestions till you turn blue, but Square's doing what Square's going to do.
Just Tim might be a tad more responsive to your needs.
He typically picks up when I call.
Well, let's talk about how people can help you at this point in time, because you are open. Can people order? What can they do? Can they order, roasted beans from you? Can they get a takeaway in large quantity? What can they do? What can this community be doing to support you all right now?
I mean, helping spread the word that we're open at Atherton and Dilworth for now, and just following our Instagram is where we get most of our information out. But just supporting his customers is obviously really needed. And we've got our full drink menu, full food menu coming back, beans. We've got an incredible team, and they're kind of working overtime. So, and just helping support, buying drinks and tipping our staff well, because that's been a big part of the learning curve. Is like it's a lot more work, and it's different work now for us as a team, and certainly for our baristas. They're wearing masks and workflow is different. It's you know, one of the things we all kind of joked about was for the first few weeks, everyone was just exhausted after a day, you know, more so than they typically were, and coming off of quarantine. And then, you know, we just have a lot more protocol in place that is more taxing. It's mentally taxing.
Yeah. How do you all as business owners, how do you help manage the team through that, right? The human element of these people that you care about and are trying to do good work for you and for the customers. How do you stay connected to that and sensitive to that?
Yeah, so we've had our staff come on, you know, not even half of our staff are back on full time. And the ones that did come back were sort of our, you know, the ones who had been with us longest in our management, and that we had a certain way we were bringing everybody back to make it very clear. So it didn't, we're playing favorites. And yeah, so we actually see them a lot, and it feels like it feels like we have two shops open, right? And that's right. A lot easier to manage. You see them more, touch base with them more in person. But I was talking with someone who will be helping us manage HR. Now that Elle is gone, she moved on to Girls on the Run. I don't know if any of you guys know Elle. But Matt will be helping us with that, and just talking about, like, you know, how we want to set up a structure to be doing, you know, touching base with them. And, you know, we have had a few come back and be a little anxious just about, you know, just about everything that's kind of, you know, uncertain, and a few who have family members who are high risk, so have asked not to come back right now. And so just trying to, you know, take everybody where they're at, and talk about what needs to be talked about and options and things like that. Just
yeah. Let me, since we're kind of talking about human connectedness here as well, I'm going to take kind of a deep turn here for a second, because there's a ton of social angst in our country right now regarding equity, justice, and a lot of frustration that's coming out, and a lot of awareness maybe where there wasn't awareness before. I know you all tend to be, if I can use the term appropriately, white allies to people of color and trying to be connected in the community. And I know sometimes that's been hard to do even in your own journey. I remember when we started at Packard, you had a sign that said, "Stay woke," which was kind of a play on being culturally woke, and also coffee, but also kind of got some pushback from the community. I guess it's all just kind of building up a question of how do you, in your business, how do you try and be allies to the community, to kind of traditionally disenfranchised communities, and how do you view it? And then what role does coffee and you all have to play? And do you have a special role to play because you are a local brand? I guess I threw a whole bunch at you there, but I'd love to just kind of get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, big, important, deep topics, and has been kind of the primary thing that Miracle and I have been talking a lot about over the last month or so. And, you know, I think culturally, it's been an important part of our business to feel like we are making an impact socially in whatever way that, you know, whatever way that looks like. So it's certainly in kind of our DNA as a company. I think a big part of it has been learning when we fuck up and when we, you know, do things well. And like the Stay Woke sign was like an example of something that, you know, had completely what's the word? Like the intentions behind it were not, you know, we weren't trying to do anything wrong. But then when we found out that, you know, there were people that, you know, had a different, you know, viewpoint on it, what it meant to them and stuff, we, you know, just adjusted, took it down, and you know, moved on from that, and tried to see where we needed to learn and how we needed to educate ourselves. So I think, you know, internally as a company right now, we're kind of in the middle of that, and we just sent out an all staff email. Miracle's friend Rebbe is putting on like a like a race and bias workshop.
Race, gender, and bias workshop. And yeah, so all of our staff will be, it will be via Zoom tomorrow evening, a 2-hour workshop. And yeah, our friend Rebbe has a lot of experience educating people, and I've attended a few of their workshops before. So looking forward to that. I mean, I think it's just important to stay teachable, right? Right now. and encourage our staff to, be open and learn, because that's what it's going to take for everyone to be willing to listen to the hard stuff.
Yeah. Would you have any advice for entrepreneurs and business owners? Because I know sometimes I've seen the full spectrum of reaction from the, what does this have to do with my business, and do I need to address it, to people who are very aggressively addressing it. What would be your advice to founders or business owners from the leadership perspective?
Find someone that you trust, that you can be vulnerable with and ask the hard questions, and then, kind of move from there. Because it is, it's hard to just ask anyone, right? It feels very personal. It's like going to someone for advice on your relationship. Like it's hard, because you want to be told the truth, right? And that might mean that you're doing some things wrong, and so you have to trust the person you're going to be asking those hard questions.
I think finding, I think what you're saying, but is like finding mentors. And, in our cases as like white business owners, we feel really proud of the culture that we've created. We recognize as white business owners that for whatever reason, we don't get many Black or colored applicants, color applying with us as a company. And, we have, a very diverse staff otherwise, but that's been kind of a glaring, our customer base is super diverse. We have a lot of Black customers. We have a lot of, customers. Coffee is a very unifying thing in a way. And it kind of crosses a lot of, socioeconomic, race barriers. Like people come for coffee. They love the community. They come to these spaces. So our staffing and our internally is not reflective of that same customer base. And that's something that, we've been talking a lot about recently, and trying to get mentorship in practical ways that we can change that. What are we doing wrong that is hindering that? Or what are we doing? And
or what are we just not doing
right.
that we can be doing? Because, people apply with you, and those are the people that apply, and but how can we actually actively make it a more welcoming place for people of color to apply?
Yeah, that's great.
I think definitely mentorship and getting people that you trust, because it is a sensitive thing, and the way social media works now, and the way our country is so polarized, and there's so many loud voices, and that can be overwhelming, especially when you don't know, if you don't have a relationship that you can like trust and feel confident that you can be really open. I think that can be really intimidating as a leader and someone that has a business, and it's like, we all juggle so much. We've got our kids, we've got our business, we're trying to stay afloat. And then, there's this sort of social responsibility that I feel is really important, or we feel is really important as a company, but sometimes you just don't know what to do. And so I think being really open and listening is the key. Yeah.
But I think it's great advice. I would tell everyone on the chat too, if you want to throw in some questions in the chat that you want me to ask James and Miracle, since we have you all muted, I'm happy to do that. So feel free to put it in there. Caitlin gave you a shout out for the fall spice latte is one of her favorites. So just whatever that's worth. Actually, maybe that's a great question to ask you, which is what is your favorite drink that you all make, right? If you had, what is your go-to favorite that you guys make?
Oh, a cap is a pretty solid choice if you just don't know what to get. And I'm not one for like super sweet drinks, but if I am going to get the fall spice, I'll have them put a little less, just because it is, and with oat milk, and then it reminds me of my mom's oatmeal.
That's awesome. James, what are you?
Cortado is my favorite drink for sure. That's always my go-to.
There we go. So Mary Allison said, want more half gallons of the iced latte with oat milk. That's fantastic. Well, if you all have questions, again, continue to put them in there. We've got a few more minutes here. I'm sure we'll wrap up probably a little bit before 6:20 tonight on our conversation. The challenges that kind of people go through, how do you deal with the stress, the normal business stress, and then the stress now? How do you deal with that as business owners? Is it easier because you're a couple? We talked a little bit about that earlier. We know we've got people on here who say they meditate, people who have a whole bunch of different devices. How do you all deal with stress and keep your calm, your zen?
Well, it used to be working out at Metabolic for me. That was my 4 time a week, 5 time a week gym routine. So not having that's been challenging for sure. But
Yeah, we do some meditating sometimes. Got some good apps. There's a lot of things you can do out there. I think finding the thing that works for you, and building it into your routine, because you'll notice, or I notice a difference when I'm actively taking care of myself, intentionally taking care of myself, and then not, because I can get burnout emotionally. Everything just feels 10 times heavier if I haven't taken any time for self-care. But yeah, and that might be different from one day to the next, but having at least something that helps you is,
Netflix helps too.
Yeah, sometimes it's just zoning out and saying, I'm just gonna.
A little escapism is healthy. Yeah, totally agree with that. I just can't. There's sometimes where I just need to unplug from the news, not just the health news, the political news. It's just sometimes you just gotta. As much as I see myself as very politically active and very, very aware of what's going on, I too just have to sometimes I just have to turn it off for a period of time, or you drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, taking breaks from social media is hugely beneficial for me. And since I'm not super active on it anyway, nobody misses me. I don't have to make an announcement. I'm taking a break from social media. I just delete the app off my phone for a few days, and
If anyone wants to be really entertained, they can be my Facebook friend and watch me go off. So the funny part is Chad is blown up with everyone's coffee order from Not Just Coffee. I feel like I'm Cluesive right now, taking orders. So I've been putting their favorites out there. Great. Caitlin had a question though, which I think is a fun one. What's the craziest cup of coffee you've ever tried, and did you like it? I guess that's a combination concoction. What's the strangest oddball thing you've ever tried?
Man, there have been some really good signature beverages that I've had. There was maybe not the craziest, but there was a coffee cola drink. Where was that? Barista Parlor in Nashville, maybe. It's like a house-made cola with espresso and some spices and herbs. So it was like a root beer, like a coffee espresso baked root beer or something.
Does this still count as coffee? When was it a crossover to not being coffee anymore?
At that point, it was just a soda.
I think that was more of, I think that was on sort of their mocktail menu, or spiritless cocktail menu. But because it is a good, it has espresso can add some real depth to anything, right? And I still love our ginger beer, which we bring back every summer, the mule, the espresso mule. So
Mary Allison just gave a shout out to the summer season. Is it macchiato lemonade?
Oh, the matcha lemonade.
Matcha lemonade. Yeah, that's pretty killer.
That's our 12-year-old's favorite. He doesn't drink coffee yet, but he will take 3 matcha lemonades.
Well, and Mary Allison has a question in there too. How's the marketing strategy changed from the initial location? Kind of what was the level of intentionality from a marketing standpoint to build your brand as kind of just one shop into more of a brand? And did that happen naturally? Was it very purposeful? How has it changed over the years? How you think about marketing?
So if you go back to so we opened in 2011. I think Twitter was just sort of becoming a thing. I remember very clumsily opening up our first Facebook and Twitter accounts for the shop and not knowing what I was doing at all. And then we were open for about a year, and a regular customer who was in social media marketing at the time was like, "You need an Instagram account." So we opened an Instagram account. And if you scroll back to the very first pictures, it's time consuming. But when we first opened it, it was pretty much my personal. It was just like a picture of coffee, occasionally the tacos I was eating for lunch, whatever. It was not very thoughtfully done marketing. And then our baristas started sending me photos. They'd text me a really good photo they took, and I was like, "Oh, that's great. Let's post it." And then I think it was their way of saying, we got to clean this up a little.
and it's funny, but photography seems to be a lot of baristas,
there's a correlation between coffee and
their side gig, or so they all had a lot of fun doing. We did a real collaborative thing for a while where You know, if you were on our staff and you like taking pictures, take some pictures and we'll post and give you photo credit. And now we have Destiny, my daughter, or our daughter, but she's 25 this year, and she's been working with us since she was 18, and worked her way up from barista to after she watched 2 other people get to be the social media managers, she got in line, and she's really got a great eye for it. Yeah.
So yeah, so like over the years, like it definitely like grew with the needs of the company. It was kind of like everything else we do. I feel like we adjusted, and we're like, and at various points realized the way we were doing it was not efficient or wasn't the best way we could do it. And we're like, oh yeah. And then if I look back now, I'm like, I can't believe we, you know, functioned like that. But you get better, and you know, bring great people onto your team, and they can help you get better. But so Destiny and I mainly meet for our marketing and social media kind of plans, and you know, that's probably a more challenging relationship. That's probably a more challenging relationship in work than working with my wife. Try working with your daughter.
I've tried that. I've had them come intern at Packard Place and do some other stuff, and yeah, it's amazing how little they value my opinion. So yeah. That's really fantastic stuff. And we're going to wrap up here in just a minute, but wanted to get a couple more questions in. Maybe we'll make this kind of the last one. Caitlin asked the question, what's the one drink or mixture or concoction you created that became a bigger hit? Is there something you guys are particularly known for? I know all your coffee's good, but do you think there's something you're known for?
I'd say the caramel, probably the caramel latte from early on, probably the first couple of weeks of being open. We played with a bunch of different caramel recipes and then came up with one we loved, and that's what we still use. So we make a lot of caramel. That's definitely
we make that in-house. So
yeah. And I've not tried that yet, so I have to put that on my list.
It's pretty good.
I think I'm going to wrap us up there, because I know we've covered a lot of ground and we got started a little earlier too, and we'll give people a little bit of time back on their evening. We always try and end before, somewhere between 6:15, 6:30. Cool. Let me end with this question for you. We talked about supporting local, supporting Not Just Coffee, that the event with Cluesive and Tim is coming up tomorrow. What are local brands that you all really love? It doesn't have to be ones that are in jeopardy of going out of business, but what are the local brands that you love that maybe people haven't heard of or they should be supporting? So you're kind of a pay it forward moment. Who would you give some shout out love to?
Crispy Banh Mi. We love that. Pepperbox Donuts.
Yeah.
Pepperbox. He
worked with us at Dilworth for a while before he opened Pepperbox, one of the owners, Nate. Good guy.
And they definitely got some love recently, but right over by our J Street location, the Lulu's Maryland crab cake place, we ordered a bunch of takeout, brought it home, and it's about as good as a crab cake can get. I think it was delicious.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you both for being on with us again. We really appreciate it, especially because I know you have a lot going on. I'm going to, as I say my thank you though, I'm going to launch this little exit poll so that everyone can take that and do a couple of thank yous as people do that. And James and Miracle, first, thank you to you. I think everyone loves the brand and the experience and the coffee that you built, which is just fantastic. Thank
you, Dan. Thanks for everyone for being here. It was awesome.
And just a plug for Packard. I think that was the build out there was the most fun, because we got to finally do what we wanted from scratch for everything, and artistically, I still think that spot stands out.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful space, and we can't wait to have it open again. So thank you for that. Don't forget, next week we have John Dillon from Threat Switch who's going to be here. We're going to be doing this hybrid virtual thing. Next week we're going to use the kegerator. Maybe we should try and do a hybrid where we can get some Not Just Coffee from next door. Maybe we can get you to do a momentary opening.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And then also just thanks to Jasmine, who's our producer, kind of behind the scenes. Mary Allison and Juan for being our co-hosts this evening, and Juan, as always, for coming on and doing that segment. It's great to see everyone here tonight. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you next week, and then we're going to move to every other week. So thank you all for being with us again. Take care.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.